What happens to a hero after the war is won? In this video, I'm not just drawing Tanjiro, I'm telling an original story about his life after the fall of Muzan. We'll explore a new journey, a new choice, a powerful message about loss and redemption. Let's get started. The rain fell in soft, silver curtains over a sleepy village, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within Tanjiro Kamado. He sat on the porch of his small rented hut, his Nigerian blade resting across his knees. It wasn't the usual vibrant hue of the sun, but a dull matte black, a color that, to many, signified a lack of potential. A color that, to him, felt like a silent curse. Months had passed since the climatic battle against Muzan, and the world was finally at peace. Yet, for Tanjiro, the peace felt hollow. The scars of battle were etched not just on his body, but on his soul. The loss of his sister, Nezuko, was a wound that refused to heal. She hadn't perished in battle, but had faded away a week after Muzan's defeat. Her humanity, so fiercely fought for, slipping away like the sand through his fingers. The doctors, the Hashira, even the Grand Master had no answers. A side effect, they said, of the final desperate struggle. He had retired from the Demon Slayer corpse, unable to bear the weight of his legacy. He was Tanjiro the hero, the one who had saved the world, but he couldn't even save his sister. He spent his days in the quiet village, a world away from the grandeur of the corpse headquarters, trying to find solace in the simple rhythm of life. But every sunrise was a reminder of the sun breathing he had mastered, a skill that had failed him in the end. Every moonlit night was a reminder of the demon he had once been, the monster he had narrowly avoided becoming. One evening, as the moon cast long, ghostly shadows, a familiar scent drifted in the wind. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but Tanjiro's nose was a trained instrument. It was the scent of a demon, but unlike any he had ever encountered. It wasn't the stench of bloodlust and decay, but something else entirely. It was the scent of grief. He followed the scent through the rain-slicked forest, his Nigerian blade suddenly feeling heavy in his hand. He found the source in a clearing, a small, hunched figure weeping silently. It was a demon, its form wavering in the moonlight, its eyes filled not with malice, but with an immense, profound sadness. And then he saw the faint shimmering glow in its hand, a tiny, wisp-like orb of light, pulsating with a gentle warmth.
Who are you?
Tanjiro asked, his voice a low rumble. The demon flinched, its head snapping up, its eyes widening in recognition.
You are the Demon Slayer?
Its voice a whisper, a sound like rustling leaves.
I'm sorry to intrude. I'll leave now. Wait.
Tanjiro said, his heart pounding a strange rhythm.
What is that?
He gestured to the orb. The demon hesitated, then held it out.
This is what's left of her.
Tanjiro's breath itched.
Who? My sister.
The demon replied, its voice thick with sorrow.
She was killed by a Demon Slayer a long time ago. Her spirit was shattered, but I gathered the fragments. I've been searching for a way to make her whole again.
Tanjiro's hand trembled as he reached out, his fingers brushing against the warm, ethereal light. The scent of grief was overwhelming now, a mirror of his own. The demon's story was a dark echo of his own tragedy.
You were human once, weren't you?
Tanjiro asked, the words catching in his throat. The demon nodded.
I was turned against my will, but I never forgot my humanity. I never forgot her.
Tanjiro knelt down, his eyes fixed on the glowing orb.
I understand.
He said, the words a confession.
I lost my sister too.
And in that moment, in the rain-soaked clearing, two beings, one a former human, the other a former demon, found a strange, unexpected kinship in their shared sorrow. The demon, seeing the sincerity in Tanjiro's eyes, began to speak of a legend, a whispered tale among the oldest demons, a spring of life hidden deep within the forgotten mountain, a place where the shattered fragments of a soul could be made whole again. It was a legend long dismissed as a myth, a desperate hope for those who had lost everything. Tanjiro's mind reeled. A spring of life? It sounded like a fairy tale, a cruel trick of desperate heart. But the scent of the demon's grief was too real, too familiar, and the hope, so long buried, began to stir within him.
Can you lead me there?
Tanjiro asked, his voice barely a whisper. The demon's eyes widened, then filled with a flicker of hope.
You will help me?
Tanjiro's gaze was firm, his resolve hardening like steel. He had failed Nezuko once. He wouldn't fail this desperate, grieving soul.
I would.
And so began their journey, a demon and a former demon slayer, united not by a shared purpose, but by a shared tragedy. They faced not the roaring battles of the past, but the quiet, treacherous paths of the forgotten world. They were hunted by the remnants of Muzan's army, who saw Tanjiro as a traitor and the demon as a freak. They faced the skepticism of the remaining demon slayers, who saw Tanjiro's new companion as a grave threat. The climax wasn't a sword fight, but a choice. At the mouth of the fabled spring, a guardian stood, not a beast, but a paradox. It was a being of pure energy, a manifestation of the spring itself, and it offered a choice. One soul could be made whole. Tanjiro could use the spring to bring Nezuko back, or he could give it to the demon, allowing it to save its sister. The demon, seeing the anguish on Tanjiro's face, pleaded with him.
You lost more than I did. Your sister. She was human. She deserves this more than anyone.
Tanjiro looked at the glowing orb in the demon's hands, and then he thought of Nezuko's last gentle smile. He thought of her fading away, a memory that haunted his every waking moment. And then he looked at the demon, its face etched with the same pain he carried. He thought of the desperate hope in its eyes, a hope that had driven it for centuries. He closed his eyes, and a single tear slipped down his cheek. He reached out, not for the spring, but for the demon's hands.
We save her,
he said, his voice resolute. The demon's eyes widened in disbelief.
But why? You can have your sister back. Because,
Tanjiro said, a small sad smile on his face.
I know what it feels like to lose a part of yourself. And I know what it feels like to have someone offer you a flicker of hope, even when you think all is lost.
He guided the demon's hands, and together they released the glowing orb into the spring. The water shimmered, the light intensifying, and a silent, joyous cry echoed through the cavern. The demon's sister was whole again, her spirit made anew. But as the light faded, the demon itself began to shimmer, to fade into motes of light.
The spring, it balances the scales,
the demon whispered, a peaceful smile on its face.
For a soul to be born again, another must fade.
Tanjiro's heart sank.
No, I didn't know. It's alright,
the demon said, its form almost transparent now.
My sister is home. That's all that matters. You gave me that.
And with a final peaceful glance, the demon vanished, its essence absorbed by the spring, leaving Tanjiro alone in the silent cavern. He walked out of the cave, the sun rising over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. He held his black maturing blade, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a curse. It felt like a legacy. A legacy not of death and destruction, but of empathy and sacrifice. He hadn't brought his sister back, but he had given another a second chance. And in doing so, he found a new kind of peace. He found a way to honor Nezuko's memory, not by mourning her loss, but by carrying her compassion forward into the world that was finally, truly at peace. And for Tanjiro Kamado, the hero who had lost everything, that was a victory worth more than all the battles he'd ever won. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, you will love my other work. I've created more art and stories from the Demon Slayer universe and beyond. Click on the video on your screen to watch my story about Inosuke, or explore my channel to find your next favorite video. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.